You want to go all in. There's this character design or story you have in mind, and you just know you're going to be committed to it. For a few weeks, you spend all of your free time fleshing things out. Eventually, though, you get to some weird middle point where you just start feeling blah. It could be because of a problem that has you stuck, or maybe you just don't really vibe with the story or a character all that much despite that first initial push. Maybe you decide to work at it from another angle or take on some challenges, but at some point, days, weeks, or even months start to pass, and you realize that you haven't really drawn your characters all that much. It's not like you dislike them, but it just kind of feels hard to jump back in given everything that was just kind of left there. These sparks come back, of course, though this cycle can end up repeating, both for new and revitalized projects, ones that you do genuinely care about. It's frustrating, and it's kind of hard to figure out why. How can people be so consistently hooked on their world, characters, or stories, all while still making progress in them? Why is it that you feel stuck creatively? I've been there myself a bunch, and in fact, one of my biggest struggles is getting myself to draw my OCs regularly. I'm not going to say I have it all figured out, though I do have an idea about what's actually happening here. Before we get into it, I'd absolutely love to hear more about your experience in the comments. What keeps you going, and what's it been like for you when you're feeling stuck? One of the issues comes from the fact that there's no clear endpoint when it comes to any sort of development. This is especially the case for hobby art and writing, specifically works that aren't necessarily meant to manifest into some published work. These projects are great in the sense that there's no pressure and you can always pick it up when you'd like, though sometimes your mind is just going to subconsciously end it once we've fulfilled something. This is often related to the feelings this project creates for you, the sense of gratification. When you've experienced it all from the highs and lows and you're not necessarily trying to share that feeling with others, there's not really a lot of motivation that can persist there, even when you do technically have other goals and things to still work on. Another factor is the investment you feel towards the design and world. Sometimes things simply don't leave as strong of an impression in your mind, and any sort of vagueness can make it hard to truly connect with your characters and their issues. Finally, sometimes it's a matter of scale. If you have a world that you've been working to populate, there's this danger of biting off more than you can chew when it comes to creating a whole cast of characters. This can even be the case for working on different stories at the same time too. When you're so split early on, it can mean less time to flesh out your characters, plus a general feeling for a lack of direction given all the possibilities and narratives that could occur with all of your characters. You love them all, sure, though sometimes it's really hard to narrow down on a select few when it comes to having a main character. Let's clarify one thing. There's no one right way to go about a creative project, and everyone's goal can be quite different in what they're after. Often, we don't really clarify this for ourselves, and if we don't take the time to figure it out, we can end up feeling bad without even knowing why. Here's two big questions here that are going to help narrow this down. 1. Who are you creating for? And 2, do you lean hobbyist or professional? If you're a hobbyist, then the ultimate goal here is having a good time and improving along the way at your own pace. This tends to be more personal in the sense that you make for yourself usually, and the reception it has is less relevant. Still, it's not to say you can't be ambitious, it's just a matter of the stakes. If you're a professional or aspire to be one, this is where you'll need to consider not only your own enjoyment of the project and characters, but also how it lands with others. A serious pursuit requires a lot of dedication and a sense of purpose. All people have different motivations for making a successful creative project. Some examples being income, the ability to reach an audience, or maybe just a personal sense of achievement in what you're able to accomplish. Regardless of where you land, what we want is to be inspired and to be able to revisit our projects and characters. We want to be able to see them through to the end, something that every person should work on identifying. The big thing here is to be honest with yourself and affirm that you don't need to feel bad about making a change or shifting your focus. If you really don't want to let go, then you're going to need stronger reasons to keep going. A motivation that'll keep you pressing on with your characters and world. Remember, sometimes an end can simply be one phase in a project or a character's evolution. If something's just not clicking for you, change it up so it's not just there in the corner collecting dust. So we know the problem and we have an idea about the scale of your goals. We're going to be learning more about how you can develop your character further to the point that you just can't help but imagine them like actual people, and how through this process you can continue to revisit them with more enthusiasm and a sense of direction. These steps were inspired from the book The Craft of Character. It's something I found very valuable and would definitely recommend checking out. It's more centered on writing over anything else, though I think artists can actually benefit, even if the focus for us can often be around character design and illustration. One of the things that makes a good character is a well-defined goal or desire. This is the starting point for determining what the character values, what they may lack, and what's going to push them into action and change along the way. You could spend time figuring out a backstory, though a character actually needs to want things for any of these details to become relevant. Without this, any sort of developments for the world or a character's background can end up being meaningless. These exercises can still be helpful, though your work will be more focused when you know your character better. When it comes to character goals and desires, you don't just stop once you have the surface level answer picked too. Instead, continue to ask questions about it. When you figure out the deeper emotional reasons, you'll be more in tune with your character, their choices, and how they respond to situations. This may all be more of a mental exercise if the goal is simply making more art, though again, it's about getting yourself to think about them more. But yes, beyond the deeper emotional reasons, goals should also be clear, meaningful, and challenging for your character. If it was easy, it wouldn't really prompt a character to change all that much. If you do the work in clarifying this, the character will be much more inspiring and engaging to you. What's another way to get yourself to care about a character? The answer is to raise the stakes. This will vary by genre and setting, though in the end, we're looking to have your character's world be crumbling, both internally and externally. This is not a matter of torturing your characters, but more around challenging them. I've made characters before that were rather chill, though by not doing this even a little bit, they continued to be static and uninteresting to me in the end. Comfy? Yes. Did I feel inspired to draw them much? Not really. If you're open to some drama, then the bigger the stakes are, the more interesting things will be. This is true because high risk reveals vulnerability in your characters, and this is important because it creates empathy. You'll feel a stronger connection to your character when you can relate to them in some way, even if it's on a general principle of knowing what it's like to experience loss in some way. When this is established, it's going to be easier to root for your character and to really feel there with them when things get better or worse. From an artist's perspective, I'd say knowing the inner and outer parts of your character will lead to more inspired artworks, even if you don't have the whole story laid out. What is a flaw? Basically, it's a wound that shapes your character's worldview and can often be based around a past trauma. This flaw is what prevents a character from learning their most critical lessons. When a choice comes, they either overcome their flaw or delve deeper into it. Flaws are different from negative personality traits as they're more centered on unresolved emotional issues as well as something that can cause trouble in their day-to-day. Without flaw, a character lacks a reason to evolve in some way. Flaws basically provide opportunities for growth and change. For more antagonistic or misguided characters, there's always more depth for what can happen if they lean into their flaw as well. When giving flaws for your OCs, it needs to actually fit the character and the arc you have imagined for them. To understand their worldview and voice better, Some recommended exercises include identifying core memories that have impacted them, as well as trying out writing dialogue. What you can do is determine a place your character would be and either have yourself or another character approach them. In this exercise, gradually reveal their worldview and problems, plus how they interact with strangers or other types of people. How do their flaws show up, even in a simple interaction? Characters can't truly operate in isolation, not without sacrificing possible character conflict at least. This is where the temptation comes to expand, either for a plot you have in mind or in just populating a world. I want to put a little warning here in advance about how you should do your best to keep it manageable, as you do not want to dilute your efforts with work that just might be too much. With that out of the way, let's figure out how you can better contextualize a character. One thing you're going to want to identify is the core theme or concept that is central to your world, character, or story. Once you have this set, you can work on making characters that cover different perspectives of this concept, as well as ones that bring out qualities of your main characters that might not be as apparent at first glance. Once you've done this, we can now finally start talking about design. We need something memorable, and the character should reflect the tone you hope to set. If you want to inspire artwork from either yourself or from others, you need to hone in on the details that matter to the character, this ranging from their expressions, their poses, props, and more. Even in writing, what we're trying to do is capture a first impression. Imagine them actually doing something or being somewhere that adds context to their character. Basically, we need visuals or writing to work with if you want to actually bounce off something when you look to draw them again. If you don't feel excited about them, try to figure out why. Does the design reflect the work you've done to learn about them? Do you find their story compelling enough? Sometimes getting feedback can be helpful as well, especially if you plan on sharing them with the world. Finally, there's perfectionism. Try to work on letting go of perfectionism and make sure that your project is fun and fulfilling for yourself. If something brings you more dread than delight, see what's causing that and how you can adapt it in a way that keeps you going over giving up completely in frustration. I believe it's really important to lower the barrier and to create because it's something you want to do. If this is neglected, then your creative works can end up being more of a source of anxiety over the things you aren't or should be doing. In the end, it's more about allowing your passion to come to fruition. This being done through the little creative acts you take each day, accumulating into either a beloved personal project or one that a bigger audience can enjoy one day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was as helpful for you as it was for me when learning about it, and I again would love to hear your thoughts. Until next time.